Proverbs 17 is where we're making our stop in our devotional journey today, looking at verse 27 to 28, which reads this. And I want you to stick with me too, because this is going to be something that's really applicable. The one who has knowledge uses words with restraint. And whoever has understanding is even tempered. Even fools are thought wise if they keep silent, and discerning if they hold their tongue. So, of course, clearly we see the big picture of usage of our words, right? There's a time to speak, there's a time not to speak. One who has knowledge uses his words, uses it wisely, right? Well, how does one have knowledge? By way of pursuing understanding. Okay. You understand the circumstance, you understand the situation, you understand what's being talked about, you understand the sincerity and sensitivity of the certain conversation that you may be sharing with somebody. You understand that it's not just a conversation you're having, but it's a conversation you're sharing with a person on the other side who has, feelings, awareness, different types of emotions and responses, and you want to be mindful of that, right? There's certain things to say, certain things not to say, and of course we want to be mindful of always speaking in kindness and courtesy and truth, in love, in grace, all those kinds of things in the conversations we carry. But here's a really good applicable thing to take from this text that I think easily replies or applies rather to our relationships as singles and friendships and even potential dating relationships and moving on. There's two things that you got to really recognize in these spaces is knowing your own capacity and knowing and being aware rather of the capacity of the person you're speaking to. And in terms of capacity regarding conversations and speech, we're just simply saying you know what you can withhold. You know the information you can contain. You know the types of conversations that you can carry with this individual and it not be something that is drowned out or done excessively, said excessively, right? You understand what can be held within this space. But the second one, in terms of knowing the capacity of the other person, can be sometimes a little bit tricky to determine because I can't really tell you what you do or don't have the capacity for. But what I can do, however, is potentially ask what you have room for the type of conversation that I may be looking for, right? Like, hey, do you have a moment to maybe speak to this? Or do you have a few moments to maybe speak and talk about this? Where's your capacity at for all that? I got to share some things that's potentially on my mind. Like introducing those kinds of things in some of the conversations that you share actually not only helps you to have stronger, healthier conversations with other people, but ultimately allows you to know before just spilling everything out to this person if they even have room for it. And outside of those two applicabilities between knowing our own capacity and being aware of the other person's capacity that we're speaking to, wisdom ultimately just knows when and when not to speak. And it requires us to be humble and being willing to listen, giving our ear to whatever is being spoken about in the manner. Listen, you and I don't know everything, and we can't walk into conversations and connections with people pretending as if we know everything because then we become the loudest in the room and not really the space that you really want to find yourself in, trying to find dominance there because that's not okay. That's not cool. So what we want to do is come in and be humble. There's always something to learn, and there's something that you can learn from everybody. And when you come in with that mindset, you're actually more willing to listen to what that person has to say. You're a little bit more in tuned and curious to the conversation, and you're not so quick to whether comment on everything, give your thought to everything, or even find yourself giving an answer to things that you don't know. I don't know about you, but I've experienced this a lot where I just used to just give answers because it was a question that was asked of me and I tried to give a thought. I tried to give an answer. I didn't really know what I was speaking about. But because I was so caught up in just wanting to be that person that always had the answers, I had something to say. And more times than not, being younger, I was off. I was wrong and jumped to assumptions a little bit too fast. And to save ourselves from maybe some of those more embarrassing moments when we are loud and wrong, let's take a step back and really, really just soak in the conversations around us. Let's look to learn something from those conversations. Let's ask the right questions. Let's move in curiosity. Let's really see, okay, maybe this is what I'm hearing. Is this what you're saying? I could be way off, but this is kind of where I am. Let me know your thoughts. Those kinds of communicative responses that can really get a conversation going and allows the other person to see that, oh, okay, this person isn't a wise hat. Like this person isn't someone who thinks they know everything. They're coming in looking to learn, willing to learn, and that's something I'm willing to work with and talk through with the conversations we share. So ultimately, the biggest picture is move in humility, know when to speak, know when not to speak, know when to shut up, and understand that it's a practice to really be able to give enough and give enough thoughts behind something that you're sharing, as well as listening to what's being shared, being an active listener and perhaps mirroring what that person is sharing. And even consider as well with your connections that knowing the why behind the balance of speech is important as well, because as we read at the end, that even fools can appear as wise when they are silent, when they hold their words restraint. And I think we want to recognize that we're being quiet, we're withholding our words, not for the sake of just to do it or from a place of misunderstanding, but no, because we can read the room. We can understand what's kind of happening behind the scenes, whether somebody is perhaps finding themselves getting offended really quickly, right? And we know that in offended spaces, when those conversations rise and those tones hit different pitches, that we want to actually continue to walk in love and we don't want to hinder the relationship or miscommunicate based on the inflection of voices and the raising of tones and the offense that's on the horizon. And so, hey, let me just peel back. Let me swallow my pride and maybe let's not talk about it right now. Let's revisit this conversation when tempers cool down, when we're able to come back together and be at peace and have an actual dialogue that progresses somewhere and not just talking to talk, being loud to be loud, and no one's really heard. Everybody's just shouting and nothing's really happening. Sometimes you're restraining words because you know that if you said what was really on your mind, you could really hurt this person. And that takes wisdom and constraint as well. So, a part of this is actually knowing too that real, genuine self control isn't often tested or even proven when you don't have the words to say. Really, it can be proven when you know you have something to say that could really humble this person in front of you, but you choose not to because it can humiliate them, it can embarrass them, it can tear them down. And so you would rather continue to move in love and not say those things because it can hit them where it hurts. And oftentimes, especially men, don't really forget those moments when those weaknesses were exposed and hit at a verbal level and can present a very, very deep scar that is quite hard, if I dare say impossible to forget. So maybe we shouldn't be as reckless with our mouths and be so proud about the recklessness of our mouths. We should rather look to pay more attention to how someone receives something when it's said. Be willing to move in grace and truth and love in those conversations, and be willing to create a space where we're just simply considering how the other person feels, and more importantly, the shoes that they're standing in before we begin to talk reckless to them or about them about something that we may be so passionate about in the moment. So, your takeaways from this devotional is to know the capacity you have for the conversations you can carry, get an awareness of the capacity that the other person has for the conversation that you may want to bring to them by asking questions and seeing what kind of room they have available for what it is you're looking to share with them. And of course, learning more of this over time, the more conversations you may share. But of course, more importantly, is moving with humility, not being a wise hat, not thinking you know it all, but actually coming into spaces looking to learn and looking to get an understanding on where people are coming from, what they're sharing, and ultimately finding a balance in your words, knowing when to speak and knowing when to shut up. And I think doing these things will be so beneficial for the relationships you cultivate in your life moving forward. Listen, I appreciate you guys so much for tuning into this video. If you like this kind of content, be sure to subscribe, like this video, share with a friend who could also benefit from hearing a daily devotional today. You know your boy's got your back. And as always, until our next conversation, be easy and be breezy, my friend. Hey, peace.